Hey, it's Hawken with Topdon, and today we're going to do a video that everybody likes, which is on cloning. Cloning seems to be one of our most popular types of videos, so we're coming at you with another cloning video today. This video is going to cover cloning a 6-speed automatic dual clutch transmission on a Volkswagen Audi platform vehicle. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started with our video. So today's vehicle is actually a 2015 Volkswagen Golf, and this particular vehicle has a 6-speed automatic dual clutch DSG transmission. Now, on these particular transmissions, all of the dual clutch variants that are found in the Volkswagen Audi as well as Porsche, which is referred to as the PDK on Porsche, have an immobilizer related component built into the Mechatronics, which serves as the transmission control unit. Therefore, if you are going to install a used unit or a new unit, the immobilizer portion has to be mated to the vehicle. Now, if you're going to use a used unit, this has to be done with cloning or with the factory software, which is Otis. Many folks don't have access to Otis, so cloning is going to be the preferred path. The tools we're going to use today, Topdon Phoenix Smart and the Topdon T-Ninja box. Now, you can use any of the professional series Topdon scan tools, which would include the Phoenix Max, the Phoenix Smart, and the Phoenix Elite. All of those will work, as well as the Phoenix Plus. The big key being we need to be able to use a USB cable from the dongle or VCI to the scan tool, and then the Y cable from the T-Ninja box to the vehicle and or the VCI. So just a couple of notes there on that. So the first thing we always have to do when we're going to do any kind of cloning is we need to verify the application. We don't know what we're going to select in the software on the scan tool if we're not aware of what the specific transmission model is. So that being said, we're going to use PartsLink 24, which is a very easy to use website in order to determine what the transmission in this specific vehicle is. So we go on to PartsLink 24, we type in the VIN number. PartsLink is available both as a monthly subscription and a one-time subscription for just a short-term use. So basically we go into PartsLink 24, type in the VIN. It's going to give us this box on the far left here that says the transmission code. Now that code is specifically for the Mechatronics. It's essentially like a variant of the transmission. We want to match up if we're using a used transmission. We want to make sure that this matches up with the original. It tells us how many speeds, which is a 6-speed automatic. And then it tells us down here that it is DQ250. So DQ250 is often the designation you will see show up in the scan tool software on the Topdon Professional Series tools. Now, we also need to know what the Volkswagen nomenclature is for this particular transmission in many cases. So we go to the transmission assembly section on PartsLink, and the assembly part number, the first 3 characters, is the designation of the transmission. So this is an OD9 or 0D9 transmission, which is a 6-speed dual clutch transmission. And you'll notice that that shows us right here the first 3 characters of that assembly part number is 0D9. So we know that that's what variant we're dealing with. And again, we're going to need to know this when we go into the software, and it is also known as DQ250. So there's a couple of things we want to keep in mind when we're dealing with used transmissions or a donor transmission. Again, needs to be the same designation, 0D9. Also needs to have that same Mechatronics code or transmission variant code, QSD, which is information we found through PartsLink 24. The donor transmission should also come from the exact same vehicle if possible. That's not necessarily required, but it is a good idea just to ensure there are no issues with compatibility. If we're going to replace only the Mechatronics, which is the transmission control unit inside the transmission, then we need to check the part number specifically of the Mechatronics and make sure that that matches up specifically from donor vehicle to original vehicle. And again, we can use the VIN number off the donor vehicle and the original vehicle to figure out this information using PartsLink 24. This is one thing we want to keep in mind when we are dealing with this cloning process. It's really important that we understand that if we are installing a used unit with over 100,000 miles, that after we do the cloning and we go ahead and do the adaptations on the transmission or basic settings, however you would like to refer to them, it is possible that due to clutch wear, the transmission may not be able to readapt the clutch pressures correctly, which could cause a no movement condition on the transmission. We should always be warning the customer about this before we suggest or allow a used component to be installed. We need to warn the customer that this is always a possibility. Now, is it a super high probability? Most likely not. Is it still possible? Yes. So we need to make sure we communicate this before we proceed with a used unit. Clutches need to be replaced if you do encounter a no move condition, unless you have something like a shift fork related error code, and then it's possible you may need to replace the entire transmission. So just again, we want to make sure we're communicating this accurately to the customer before we go ahead and suggest any used components on this vehicle. So just a couple of notes on cloning. I'm going to drag my bubble back down to the bottom right here. We want to keep in mind that when we're doing a used or a new transmission, it's going to be much easier to do the cloning if we have both transmissions out of the vehicle on the bench, sitting out of the vehicle. Why? It's easier to access the connectors and pin them out with the T-Ninja box if they are both out of the vehicle. Now, does that make it impossible to do it when they're in the vehicle? No, but it is significantly easier to access all of the pins on certain applications if they are removed from the vehicle. The other thing you want to make sure you do during the cloning process, and we've talked about this in our previous videos, we always want to read the original module's flash files and any EEPROM files, basically any data we're pulling from the module. We want to read it at least 2 or 3 times, and we want to compare the data between the files to make sure that they are in fact identical. This ensures that we are not reading corrupted data and then writing corrupted data. Very important to keep in mind. Just want to say a big thank you to some of the folks that have mentored me and explained this to me before, Pedro De La Torre and Tommy Oliva. Both of them have really made it clear that I have to always do this when I'm doing cloning, so just want to pass that knowledge along to you. It's always crucial when we're using our scan tool for cloning that we do have a hardline USB connection from the vehicle communication interface to the scan tool itself. Absolutely have to use USB. Why? Again, we're dealing with data corruption issues otherwise, so just something to keep in mind additionally. When we are replacing the Mechatronics, I'll move my bubble out of the way so you can scan the QR code here. When we are replacing the Mechatronics, there are effectively 2 different basic settings procedures on the majority of these transmissions available. There is procedure, what I would like to define as procedure A, and this is not necessarily what Volkswagen states, but then again, Volkswagen also doesn't really provide instruction on replacing a used Mechatronic. If we're going to do an entire used transmission assembly, or we're going to replace just the mechatronics with a used or new, we need to make sure that we try procedure A, which is the QR code you see right here, only, and try to see if the transmission will drive normally after only doing procedure A. If it will, we want to leave it right there and not go any further. Now, the reason for this being is, remember when I talked about the possibility of a no movement situation? No movement situations can absolutely occur if you do procedure B instead, right out of the gate. Procedure A reduces the chances that perhaps we could end up in a no movement situation. Again, we're going to do procedure A if we're doing an entire used assembly or a used or new mechatronics only. Again, if the clutches are not being serviced, we want to try doing procedure A and see if we can get good shift quality and drivability with only procedure A. If procedure A does not get the job done, or we are replacing the entire transmission as brand new, or the clutch packs have been replaced, Then we want to try this procedure, procedure B. Again, if procedure A fails and you have poor shift quality or incorrect engagement, then we need to try procedure B. Now, when we try procedure B, again, the customer needs to be informed. There is always a limited possibility that the transmission may exhibit a no movement condition if the clutches were not replaced or if the transmission was not replaced as a brand new assembly. Okay, so we've covered all the foundational knowledge, and at this point, we are able to go and we're going to show you the walkthrough on the scan tool portion. So our basic setup is basically using the T-Ninja box and pinning out the transmission, as you can see on our picture on the left. We're going to go ahead and switch over to the scan tool screen now, and I'll walk you through the process steps on the scan tool screen. All right, as promised, we are now going to walk through the scan tool portion of the cloning process. And again, we're going to use the Phoenix Smart on this one. However, it is important to keep in mind that this does work the same on the Phoenix Max, the Phoenix Elite, the Phoenix Smart, the Phoenix Pro, and the Phoenix Plus. Those would be the other tools, as well as the Phoenix Remote. Again, we do have to have the T-Ninja box in order to complete this operation. So we're going to go into the scan menu, and we're going to build the vehicle under the Volkswagen brand. We have to go into the Volkswagen specific software when we are doing cloning of this nature, not through the IMMO Prague menu. And that is unique to Volkswagen Audi. Now you saw it told us it had an IP address for the dongle. That is a direct result because we have the USB cable plugged in. You will see that message when it's USB connected. You can also look at the screen on your dongle to verify that you are connected via USB and not connected via Bluetooth. Okay, so now we're in the main menu here. We're going to go to the special functions section up here in the banner, and that's where we're going to find our immobilizer related functions for cloning. Now, it is important to keep in mind you do have to have good network connection during this process as well. So make sure you have a good internet connection when you are attempting to do the cloning. So we're going to scroll down and find anti-theft function, hit OK. Generation 4 and above immobilizer, gearbox module replacement, and platform mode is what we are going to select. And we have to have our Y cable connected. You may notice that the T-Ninja box may upgrade the firmware when you go to connect. That's normal. It is often getting updates to the firmware to improve functionality or expand functionality. So you will always want to make sure that you let it go ahead and do this. And it doesn't take real long to do this, so. Okay, so we have performed the update. Now we're going to proceed into the software. So here's the screen right here where we are going to select the appropriate transmission. Remember when we were in Parts Link 24, we saw the designation DQ250, and there's a suffix number there because there's more than one DQ250 variant. That is possible. You'll also notice some of these provide the three-digit identifier like 0AM as a clarifying characteristic, which is why we also may need to know that when we are in the software. So again, PartsLink 24 will give us this information. Okay, so now we've got our dongle hardline connected with the USB cable. So we're going to click on the wiring diagram so we can see what connections we need to make with the T-Ninja box. It's going to download the wiring diagram from the internet. And this is going to ask us if we're using an adapter cable or not. We're going to select no. The adapter cable is a specialized plug and play adapter that basically makes it so you don't have to make the pin connections individually. So we're going to say not used. It's going to download our diagram. And now it's just going to give us the pin connector at the Mechatronics unit on the transmission housing. And we just need to match the numbers in the picture with the numbered cables on the T-Ninja box. Pretty straightforward and simple to do. We'll speed through this a little bit here. Left the screen up for a little bit here so that the connections could be made. Okay, so we're going to go back. And now we are going to connect to the module. That's going to be the next step in the process here. Sometimes this will take a moment to complete the function. Okay, so we are connected to the module, and you will see a chip ID provided by the scan tool when it has made a successful connection with the module. If it fails, try multiple times, and typically you will be able to connect. But once you have your chip ID read out, now we can back up the EEPROM data and the flash data from this specific module. So we're going to go ahead and we'll speed through here. Whoops, I sped through a little bit. Okay. So now we're going to back up the EEPROM data. And that goes pretty fast as there's not a whole lot of information there that's super large in size. And then we're going to save our file. And I always like to name the files version 1, version 2, version 3, because again, we're going to read the file multiple times, and we're going to save it as version 1, 2, and 3. That way we can compare the files to make sure that they were read successfully and did not get corrupted. So again, I'm backing up the file one more time here. That way we have at least 2 copies of the information, and we're going to compare the file data. Again, we're going to name it. Again, we're pulling the file from the original transmission first here. Sometimes we'll have to pull it from the original and the donor, sometimes not. So I'm going to save it there. Now we're going to back up the flash data, and we're going to do that operation twice. So we'll time lapse this a little bit for you and speed it through. Now remember, the flash file is a lot larger, so it takes longer. So we've got it saved here. Data backup succeeded. We're going to back up the flash a second time here. Okay, we're going to save it again, original V2. Okay, so we're going to back out now. So we're going to go all the way back out to the main menu. And we are actually going to go to the IMMO prog section of the tool and do a file data comparison. So we'll go to services and then IMMO prog. Gonna hit OK. And we're gonna hit OK. So after we hit OK, we're going to hit data comparison. Now we simply load the 2 versions of the data, original V1 of the flash, original V2 of the flash in each of the subsequent slots there. And now we're going to do a data comparison. Boom, they are identical. That means we should have read quality, accurate data, not corrupted data. Now we're doing the same with the EEPROM files. And it's going to make a quick comparison. Okay, so we read good data on both, presumably here. If you really want to go a little bit further, you could do 3 copies and compare all 3, just to be extra sure that there's no corruption. But the odds of 3 corrupted reads is extremely low, so long as you are using your USB. Now that we know the files are good and not corrupted, we'll go back into the Volkswagen software. Again, we saw that it assigned an IP address because we're connected via USB. Now we're going to connect to the used module that we are installing in this vehicle, and we're going to write the data that we pulled from the original module into the used donor module. So we'll go into the special functions menu just like we did before, and we will, platform mode is what we're selecting. We're going to connect just like we did before. DQ250 is what we'll select just like before. OK. And then we're going to go ahead and hit the wiring diagram again so we make sure we make our connections without the adapter cable. We're going to make sure we get our connections correct again here and connect to the donor module. And it's the same wiring diagram, of course. So now we're going to go ahead and connect to the module. And just like before, we should expect to see a chip ID here if we've got a successful connection. Now remember, we're connected to the donor used module currently, and remember we also need to make sure we have a strong internet connection. So we did read the chip ID, which means we have a good connection. Now we are going to restore the EEPROM data. So we're in the menu here to do the restoration of the EEPROM data. We want to make sure we select the EEPROM data for the original module. It doesn't matter if we select version 1 or 2 since both were the same. We're going to hit OK. And it's going to restore the file to the used donor module. Now this generally doesn't take too long because the EEPROM data is pretty small. Now we're going to restore the flash data, and we'll select our flash file and we'll hit OK. This will take a little bit longer since the flash file is quite a bit larger in overall data than the EEPROM file. And we'll fast forward this, but obviously be very patient because this can take a while. You can see it kind of went a little bit faster than I expected there. Uh, Obviously, so now that we've successfully completed the restoration of the EEPROM and the flash data to the donor module, if it is not installed in the vehicle, we could install it in the vehicle now. If it's already installed in the vehicle, we can connect everything back up and then turn the key back on for the vehicle. We would need to pre-scan, or excuse me, post-scan the vehicle, clear all the fault codes after we save that post-scan, and then there may be some basic settings that would need to be performed on various modules as a result of the battery being disconnected when the transmission was out, and or the replacement of the transmission mechatronics and or transmission assembly and or clutch packs. So we're not going to show those in this video because that's going to be different on each application. Your tool will be able to help you with all of those. So if you do need assistance on that, again, the tool should be able to help you with that without any issues. If you do need support on our tool, feel free to give us a shout on our support hotline or send us a ticket, support@topdon.com, and we're happy to try and assist you on that. Again, after we complete the cloning successfully, as we did here in the video, we do need to make sure that we clear all fault codes from all modules and complete any necessary relearn basic settings for any specific modules. The most common modules that will require this after a battery disconnection will typically include the ABS control unit, the steering angle sensor, as well as the transmission for the purposes of the replacement of the control unit itself, which is the Mechatronics. Again, we already covered that at the beginning of this video, so hopefully you have paid attention to that, and of course you can always go back and hit those QR codes with your phone in order to look at the TSVs from Volkswagen on those basic settings. Keep in mind those basic settings documents. Volkswagen only says apply to the 6-speed automatic DSG dual clutch transmission. The process on other DSG transmissions will likely be different, so you will want to make sure you look for a TSV and or consult the scan tool appropriately to look at what basic settings are available in the transmission menu. So, hey, Hakan again with Topdon. Just wanted to thank you for taking the time to watch our cloning video here on this 2015 Volkswagen Golf DSG transmission cloning. Uh, we'd appreciate it if you'd like our videos, subscribe, share the videos, and of course, comment. Let us know what kind of videos you'd like to see us put out in the future. And of course, let us know what you thought of this video and how we can help you in the future. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team if you are needing assistance with your tools specifically. We're always glad to help, and of course, we appreciate you taking the time to watch our training videos. So again, I'm Hawken, and thanks again for watching.